Buenos días, mi gente. Hiring virtually is about more than just finding someone with a good Wi-Fi connection. It's about building trust, culture, and clear expectations across geographic lines. Today, I'm giving you the playbook on how to hire and onboard remote talent the right way in 2026. I'm Georgia Cartagena from Algo Más HR, and we help emerging businesses build people systems that make remote work a competitive advantage and not just a management headache. Today, we are breaking down the 3 pillars of virtual hiring: identifying remote-ready candidates, setting up your digital-ready workspace policies, and the boring but very important logistics of multi-state registration. Not everyone is built for remote work. It's really important to understand the kind of habits and expectations that are needed in order to employ an effective remote talent pool. So you need to look for self-management skills and very strong written communication. The goal isn't to constantly be on calls in order to answer questions. It's to hire a team that can work independently. And so my interview tip for you is look through the list of questions that you've created ahead of your interviews. So make sure you're setting your interview guides before you start the interview process. And make sure that in those questions, are there opportunities for candidates to highlight examples of how they manage their own deadlines or how they handle radio silence from a teammate or a leader. Basically, how they approach communication. And think about whether or not those things that they're saying and sharing with you align with how you operate your business. Another thing to consider is, what is your philosophy on AI? In this day and age, we have to acknowledge that many candidates use AI to help write their resumes so that it shares their stories more clearly. And many companies now provide access to tools like Gemini or ChatGPT Enterprise, Copilot if you're on the Microsoft platform, depending on what their tech stack looks like. So if you're looking to assess AI fluency as part of the process because it's relevant to the role, then you want to ask about how they've leveraged AI in their work previously. Some people may use work examples or even personal projects to highlight their thought process. It's important to understand whether or not they have a clear approach and how they use AI to speed up maybe content creation or leverage it from a strategic thought partnership perspective. There's a number of use cases online on how AI can benefit businesses and benefit particular positions. And so this conversation will give you a good chance to understand how this candidate that you're considering for your team might be able to leverage a very specific skill set for your business as well. Pillar number 2, the digital ready workspace and AI policies. We just discussed what your AI philosophy is and thinking through what that looks like in this very progressive sort of work environment. And so there's a couple of key things that you want to consider from a workspace perspective. Number 1, equipment best practices. Typically, I have this conversation with clients when they're considering hiring a contractor versus an employee. For the sake of this segment, we're going to talk about employing remote talent. And so for remote teams, you want to provide hardware. My advice? Yes, because for security and cultural reasons, it makes the employee feel part of the team on day 1 to receive something in the mail and be able to open it up and it's already prepared with credentials or login invitations to different tools that you might already be using. We talked a little bit about AI before, but for AI tools, you want to make sure that you're setting clear boundaries. Can they use AI to summarize in meetings? Yeah, that makes sense. Can they put sensitive client data into an open AI? Absolutely not, hard no. But given how prevalent AI's applications are, you are going to need to do some education internally on what these practices, acceptable practices look like versus unacceptable risky behaviors. And then from a security perspective, I always recommend as soon as you make your first hire to use some sort of password manager. There's LastPass, 1Password, RPass as well. There's a number of them out there, and you do have to pay for them. But this way you never have to text or email passwords to a remote hire, and you have more control over which passwords they have visibility to. A lot of times I'll work with clients where they're managing all of their company accounts from a single spreadsheet and then sharing that with maybe 1 or 2 hires, or copying and pasting the passwords that are relevant and sending those via email. So those are some things to think about as you think through what does your digital ready workspace look like. All right, so on to the third piece, logistics. What I consider the silent considerations. These are the things that people know about but don't really want to consider, or maybe I'm just going to ignore it until it becomes a problem later. You register your business in the state in which you live, most oftentimes. The key here is that when you are looking at remote talent that's across state lines, if you're based in the US, you need to register in these new states, right? So think about it. If your candidate lives in Georgia and you're in Florida, you need to set up a Georgia withholding, because across different states, they might have additional withholdings. You might have to contribute towards paid family leave costs, which is set up through payroll. You may also have to offer paid sick time, unpaid time off options, additional benefits that might be offered through the state that you may not even realize. But it's really important to do it because you're opening yourself up to a significant amount of risk if you're choosing not to comply with state laws. So think about it from this perspective. If I'm in California, which is known to be a very employee-friendly state with a lot of employee-friendly protections, and I'm in Florida, but I'm hiring somebody in California, I now am subject to California state law because that person is there. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments. You can reach out to us via email or on Instagram, but this is very important to get right when you are working with remote teams. And there are tools and platforms out there that can actually help you manage these things for you. So you don't even have to think about it. You can outsource it to a platform, or if you're going international, which is not the focus of this video, but if you're going international, you can also enroll with an employer of record, an EOR. So it's another topic for another day. As I mentioned before about California versus Florida, something else to consider is time zones and availability. When it comes to working with remote talent, you have to be clear about what core hours are. Do you need them to be available and online from 9 to 5 Eastern time every single day? Or is their role more results-based? Define this before the offer letter is signed, because oftentimes when the employer allows the employee to come in and dictate availability and scheduling, it's a lot harder to integrate that person simply because you're trying to be overly flexible and then there's no clarity. And when there's no clarity, there is chaos. So how do we avoid this chaos? As you sit down and you think through your business operations and what you expect for this person to be able to do, think about how much time you need to be able to collaborate with them. Is it just as simple as being available during overlapping hours where maybe you are online from 12 to 3 Eastern time, so that's 9 to 12 Pacific time, in order to make sure that you both are available for relevant meetings, collaboration, problem solving, and then parting ways for independent objectives and projects. So let's recap. The best remote teams aren't lucky, they're intentional. They start with the right person, give them the right tools, and protect your business with the right registration. So if you have got more questions about hiring virtually, or maybe you have a favorite tip to share from your own experience, leave them in the comments below. We'll look through any questions and highlight some of our favorite tips on social. And send this to a business owner in your circle who's considering remote talent this year. It's a very quick overview to be able to get a lot of information. And day 3 of our HR Reboot Series drops next Monday. We're talking compliance, the 3 legal tripwires that can sink a growing business. So hit subscribe and make sure that you're protected.